Story of TikTok star Cameron Herron. Jessica Reisinger-Orbenold and her daughter Lilia were trying to cross the street at West Knights Avenue. Before they could make it across, they were hit by a 2018 Ford Mustang driven by Cameron Herron, a famous TikTok star who lived just blocks away. Police say Herron, with Tristan Herron as his passenger, was racing another northbound vehicle, a gold Nissan driven by John Barano. The data recorder in the Mustang later showed that Herron was speeding at 102 miles an hour before the driver began a hard braking, right before the crash. The speed limit on the road at that time was 45 miles per hour. In April, Cameron Herron was sentenced to 24 years in prison after pleading guilty to vehicular homicide.
Story of North London's Highgate Cemetery. Death is one of life's realities, and yet the notion of death remains mysterious, if not terrifying. One reason may be the way that burial grounds tend to become crowded, a constant reminder that death is always in pursuit. Such is the case with this eastern portion of North London's Highgate Cemetery, the resting place to close to 200,000 people since 1839, where the gravestones appear to be collapsing in on themselves. 2018 Attica wildfires of Greece. As a result of a wildfire in Mati, Greece this year, more than 86 people were either killed by the flames or drowned while trying to flee into the nearby sea. Local fishermen and private boat owners were able to save many more, but the sight of a burnt soccer ball is a haunting reminder of the devastation left behind. Story of a lonely crime scene. Between 1947 and 1949, a divorcee by the name of Martha Beck and her boyfriend, Raymond Fernandez, went on a killing spree, murdering as many as 20 women whom they'd met via newspaper personal ads. After the so-called Lonely Hearts killers were apprehended for the murder of Delphine Downing and her 2-year-old daughter, Raynell, the investigation took police to this basement in Queens, New York, where the body of another of the victims, Janet Faye, was unearthed from beneath the floor. Story of the Karla Faye Tucker. This haunting image of the convicted capital murderer, Karla Faye Tucker, illustrates why the public was divided over Texas's decision to execute her on February 3, 1998. After Tucker confessed to murdering 2 people during a robbery, she made a public conversion to Christianity and captivated many in the American public with her charm and her claim of having reformed. Her execution, via lethal injection, was the first of a woman in Texas since 1863. Story of the tsunami ghost ship. Ghost ships are haunting by nature, particularly when no one can really say what happened to the disappeared crew. But this ghost ship is haunting for a different reason. It was inadvertently launched into the sea as a result of a tsunami off the coast of Japan in 2011, along with about 5 million tons of debris. Because it was a threat to maritime traffic and a potential threat to the environment, the U.S. Coast Guard sunk the ghost ship in 2012. Pictured here is the plume of smoke that remains. Creepy photos aside, these mystery ghost ships defy explanation. Story of the Hedda and Jules horror. Those who lived in New York City during the late 1980s will remember the tragic tale of Lisa Steinberg, the 6-year-old girl who was beaten to death in 1987 by her adoptive father, Joel Steinberg. Steinberg's then companion, Hedda Nussbaum, is pictured here with 6-month-old Lisa shortly after the illegal adoption, and long before Nussbaum became a late 1980s face of domestic violence. The story of doomed Romanov family. In the wee hours of July 17, 1918, Russia's entire royal family, as well as several of their servants, was murdered, bringing a swift and violent end to a 300-year-old imperial dynasty. The family had been imprisoned by the Bolsheviks since February of 1917. Prior to that, the patriarch of the family, Tsar Nicholas II, had made some ill-advised decisions, including leading the country into World War I in 1914, the same year this photo was taken. Story of Karl Wallenda. Karl Wallenda was a German-American high-wire artist and founder of the Flying Wallendas, a daredevil circus act which performed dangerous stunts, often without a safety net. This photo was pictured in a triumphant moment in 1978, just after he crossed Tower Bridge in London by tightrope. Sadly, Karl died during a tightrope walk later that year in San Juan, Puerto Rico, at the age of 73. Story of the Chernobyl's kindergarten. In case you need a refresher, in 1986 a routine safety test went horribly wrong at the Chernobyl nuclear power plant in Ukraine, which was then part of the Soviet Union. One of the 4 nuclear reactors overheated and exploded, starting a fire and spewing radioactive material into the air, which remains in the area today to some degree. Here, we can see an old armchair with a doll's head sitting in what was once a kindergarten in the Chernobyl zone.